What's up everybody, Gunpla here, and today I'll be showing a basic tutorial on how to make bullet damages on Gunpla pieces. I'll show how you can go from this to this. I'll put the instructions and everything covered in this tutorial in the description below. To begin, all you need for this tutorial is everything you see in front of you. 1. Your drill bit. 2. Your hobby knife. 3. Silver or aluminum color paint. 4. A paintbrush with a fine tip. And 5. Your Gunpla piece. Before we begin, let's go over the materials first. 1. Your drill bit. A drill bit is necessary in order to create the actual bullet holes. In this tutorial, I'm using Tamiya drill bits, which come in 5 different sizes: 1mm, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3mm. 2. Your hobby knife. I would highly recommend using a hobby knife that has already been worn down and used. A clean new knife used in this tutorial will be severely dulled. 3. A silver or aluminum color paint is a basic color. It is important to use this color because it'll represent the underlying metal from the bullet damages. You'll be using this paint in conjunction with your fine tip paintbrush. And finally, the Gunpla piece. I'll be using the RX-79 Gundam Ground Types shield in this video. This piece is ideal for this tutorial because it is flat and is a Gundam heart which will most likely receive bullet damages. Before this video, I added light weathering and battle damages. You can find out how I did this in my other tutorial video, which I'll link in the description below. Now, let us begin. So, the first step in this tutorial is to create the bullet holes in our shield using the Tamiya drill bit. This drill bit is 2.5mm in size, which I feel is appropriate because this shield is a high-grade piece for the RX-79 ground type. Anything larger than a 2.5 I feel would definitely be a little bit abnormal. The bullet holes may appear a little too large. This shield, important to highlight, has a back piece right here. And it's important to note this because in this video we're going to use the drill bit and we're going to puncture all the way through until we touch this back piece. If you do not have the back piece and you do drill all the way through, you're going to expose what's ever behind it. So unless if that is your intent, you may want to consider just using the drill bit and going halfway down the piece, creating some sort of little impact or a little crater area, and then filling it with Tamiya putty in order to create an after effect. Before you start adding holes into your pieces, you may also want to go on Google Images and just study the bullet patterns and the bullet effects. I'm going to add 3 bullet holes right here in the bottom left, then the mid right, and then perhaps somewhere around the area of the top right. Remember, you can never take away once you add too many bullet holes, so always start out with a few, and then if you want to add more, definitely go ahead and do that. But once you add too many, it's impossible to go back. To add the bullet holes, we're going to basically lay our piece flat, and we're going to use the drill bit, go straight down, and again, we're going to go all the way through, twist and turn all the way through until we touch the back piece. And here we go. So, here are 3 perfectly rounded bullet holes. Of course, we can't leave it like this because bullet holes are supposed to be rigid, damaged, and uneven. And in step 2, this is where the hobby knife will come into play. We're going to use this knife, insert into the center of each hole, and we're basically going to carve out pieces of plastic around the hole in order to create an impact area. And that's why it's very important to note that you may want to consider using a dull knife. A new knife in this process will absolutely be destroyed. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to lay the plastic piece flat on the mat, and I strongly recommend doing it like this because if you were to carve out the pieces like this, holding it in the air, you may run the safety of your fingers. So again, just put it on the mat, and we're going to use this hobby knife insert the tip into the center, and we're going to carve our way around back and forth, creating an uneven impact area. And here we go. Now that we created our bullet holes and the impact areas for each hole, for our third step, we're going to use the aluminum paint and the paintbrush and paint the inside of each hole in order to create the effect of exposed metal. And before we do that, we're going to use the hobby knife, and we're going to use the tip in order to create small little shrapnels around the hole for additional realism. And that's very simple to do. We're just going to use the tip, and we're just going to create small impact areas, something that is barely noticeable, but it does add a lot to the effects. And of course, you don't want to do too much, just intermediately, and spread them around like that, such as that. And that's small little shrapnels. So now we're done with the hobby knife, and we're going to use the paint and a fine tip paintbrush. Of course, you're going to have to mix the paint very well. I already have off screen, and you don't need much for this step. I'm just going to use the paint that's on top of the cap right here, and I'm going to use a paper towel to absorb any additional that we don't need here. And we're going to paint the inside of the holes. Of course, we're going to go to the edges around the impact area, again, because our objective here is to show the exposed metal. As always, you always want to add just a little bit to get a good idea on where things are. And then if you want to add more, you could definitely do so. Because if you add too much, it's just the process to remove it is going to be a little bit of a pain. So we're going to start with the top right, and we're going to lightly go each and cover the impact area very lightly. There. And we'll move to the next hole. Again, go very lightly, even, cover the impact area, and try not to go outside the holes or outside the impact crater. there we have it. 3 bullet holes for our RX-79 ground type shield. Of course, this tutorial only takes a couple minutes and the supplies are relatively cheap. The only difficult portion was trying to find the Tamiya drill bits, but of course, again, you don't have to use the Tamiya drill bit. Anything from a local hobby shop will definitely do. And that concludes this tutorial. This is an easy, short process which can add a lot of realism to your Gunpla building. You don't need a lot of materials, but this does take practice. As a recap, you want to choose the right size drill bit to create your bullet holes. Then, you want to determine how many bullet holes you want. Remember that you cannot take away, but you can always add, so start with less. And finally, use a dull knife to create the impact areas because a new knife would absolutely be destroyed in this process. As a pro tip, you can use the tip of your knife to create small shrapnel effects when you are done making your impact areas. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please post them down in the section below. As always, I appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.